All right, how's everyone doing? I am Rich Celenza. Thanks for tuning into the Rich Celenza Show. So, I'm going to get into today a question I get pretty often, more I would say online now than anything else, and that was, why did you write the book Wingman? And, I actually, that was my second book. A lot of people may not know that. And my first book was called The Model Bible. And that was really to help females, young females, and their parents not get taken advantage of when trying to break into the fashion modeling industry. I've seen so many people, young girls, being misled, and I despised it. And so I grew up a little bit in the fashion world. I modeled when I was younger, and then my daughter did a lot of modeling when she was younger, and I was there, and I would go back and forth with a lot of people they knew, because she was so advanced, and a lot of things that I taught her were, a lot of things I learned throughout my life. But I also installed in her, how to be very respectful, and she was very savvy regarding the industry. At a very young age, I think my daughter was one of the top young female models in the whole southeast part of the United States at one time. But when that was over, I remember that I was exhausted from writing screenplays. And it's very interesting. When you work on screenplays, and I've written numerous amounts of them, or even a book, it's daunting. It's a long time, and it's never right, in my opinion. There's always something you can take out, and there's always something you may be able to, add. That goes for anything. It's not like a film. When I shot my films, you can only edit. I mean, you can edit forever for the rest of your life, but you only have the footage you can work with when you're done. I mean, you could go back and reshoot, but who's doing that? That's more money, more time. You got to, nip it in the bud. But with a book, it's different. You can always change it. You can add a chapter, and then as you go on, it takes me a couple years to write a book, and then I'm like, oh, I forgot they had this, and then you have people read it, and I have my editor, and she's like, oh, we forgot that, but you should be adding this, and then this comes out, because things change too, In life, one year to the next, your subject matter or the way they're doing things can change. Like even right now through a pandemic, like the modeling industry is obviously much different than it was 8 months ago, right? Of course. So if I was writing a book now, it'd be different. This would probably be included this time and place, how to maybe get through this and still have a career. I'd probably have something in there. But when it came to Wingman, a lot of people asked me to write a biography on my life, because I grew up in the bar and nightclub business with my mother and father. And then my mother went on to become very religious, and my father owned the nightclub. And then he sold that. We went into the vending business in Florida, collecting money all over Central Florida in gentlemen's clubs, nightclubs, bars, lounges, everything in between. Did I say restaurants? Anyways, all that type of shit. It was a very interesting life. I also we gambled a lot. Not only did I gamble, we booked. So we took bets. We also traveled to gamble all over the United States, even including places like Biloxi out of nowhere, and the Bahamas and Vegas, Atlantic City, and everywhere in between. If it's Chicago, we just gambled wherever the hell we wanted to gamble. And it was a blast. I had a crazy life, and then I got married at 25. But the life I led from like 2 years old to 24 was whack. And even when I was married, it was pretty wacky, because my ex-wife loved to gamble too and loved the lifestyle. We even had our honeymoon. We got married in Chicago. We had a huge wedding, and then we went to Vegas for our honeymoon. That's how much we like to gamble. Most people go to Vegas for a bachelor party. My friends all wanted to do a bachelor party there. And I says, what am I going to go there twice? I must just get, it sounds like a running joke, but we didn't want to go to Atlantic City. Nothing against, I loved Atlantic City. A lot of guys didn't like it as much because of the weather, and it was just a different environment. And we lived in Florida, so we were in and out of these junkets. And a lot of these junkets, it was just me and a crew of guys. And I would even have they knew us so well, it was having like our own private charter flights sometimes, because we'd be the only ones on the damn plane. It was whack. Or there'd be a couple other couples and all of us, say 6, 8, 10 guys. It's like our private plane. We'd walk around, hang out, talk with everybody. It was unbelievable. And we'd fly out of Orlando or Daytona. It was a crazy life that I definitely led. And I know a lot of people say they've led a crazy life, which I'm sure they have. Anyone could write a book. I'm telling you right now, I'm sure you, whoever's listening to this, have something to offer. I'm just going to say this real quick. You most likely lived an amazing life. Now, you may be like, oh, my life was boring. Like a lot of my friends say, Rich, I never had your life. Not even my close friends who spent their time with me even through their teens and 20s, they'll always say, man, if not for you, who knows what my life, like the craziness and what you exposed me to. And I used to say, later in life, was I a good influence or bad? I'd say I was bad. But I think on the other end, all the stories they talk about, a lot of them with me are really nuts. And I like that. So it fits my personality. But back to you, if you are someone, you may have led maybe kind of a simpler life, but you learned so many things, and maybe someone can learn from you, or it's just everyone has a story to tell. I really believe it. No one leads the same life. But back to my book, Wingman, I didn't want to write a biography in just my life. I wanted someone to learn something from it. I really did, because I really started writing it as a biography. And it's really interesting. And I know even some well-known producers out of LA that said, Rich, you write the script to your life, I'll really consider producing it. Or I think we could shop it. And to this day, I never wrote it. I don't know why. And you would think that would be the lead that I finally have. Now, if somebody else, I've told other people, if they want to do it, I would do it with them. But I've written, what did I write? For me, this is a lot, but I think I've written 6 or 7 screenplays, and then I've dabbled in some others. And I don't want to write another screenplay. Right now, even after writing Wingman, I was going to write a third book called Shut Up and Eat. It's my mother's recipes Italian cookbook. I was going to incorporate stuff. And I started it, worked on for about a year. Hit the brakes, man. I was just exhausted from it. But Wingman, I got a lot of exposure out of Model Bible because it was my first book. I was living in California, bouncing in and out of LA. I was getting a lot of reviews on that book. And, a lot of people are like, do a follow-up to fashion or wardrobe too. Because that'll be, that would make more sense. Because then I said, no, I'm going to do Wingman, or it wasn't even Wing. I was like, no, I'm going to do this book and try to help men find the woman, guideline on how to find the woman of their dreams. And they were like, what the hell are you talking about? And I said, most times I talk to dudes, it's either relationship things we talk about, or we do talk about fitness, wardrobe, identity. And it started with social media. I didn't really even like social media that much. I loved MySpace because I could show my films, but when Facebook came around, I thought it would be a trend like anything else, just like MySpace, and will get weeded out. But I was traveling at the time. And a lot of times I wasn't posting pictures of myself. I was posting pictures of my favorite restaurants, like a lot of foodie weirdos. And then people were posting me or tagging me in their photos, and I was dressed a certain way. I was hanging out in a lot of cool places all over North America, going to a lot of cool things, still kind of film-related, television, kind of cool parties, one of those things. So that's kind of where my identity changed. I also got a divorce. So I kind of went from a father and then traveling, and then really I love being a father. But I also loved being independent. That doesn't mean away from my children. I love my children. I base my life around my kids. But I also I didn't like the identity of a dad as much as I thought. And believe me, I was with my kids constantly. I revolved my entire life around my kids. Really. I went from a guy who who collected money legally and illegally. And I was also a father. And I love that part of my life. I would have never changed it. But I also, when they were getting older, I didn't want to be the dad sitting there. And this is not a dig, like khakis or cargo shorts and a Tommy Bahama and in Florida, those dads, never fit in with them. And not that they're bad, great guys. I just never fit the daddy profile. And I started to, I can't say revert, I truly conformed into who I really was. I think how I was programmed, I guess, which is I liked, again, being around beautiful women. I liked dressing a certain way. I liked eating at certain places. And I'm not saying the nightlife, because I was kind of still exhausted from that, but I liked freedom. So when I wasn't with my kids, I still wanted to do things I wanted to do, and being married restricted me from that. And I was exhausted from that. I was in a relationship for a super long time, and it was good. But it was just time for me to end it. And I think my ex-wife as well, and I had a wonderful marriage, at least on my side, maybe, I don't know what her side, but still do have a great relationship with, obviously, my ex-wife. She went on to have more kids, which is wonderful. My 2 daughters, have 2 wonderful young brothers. I love every aspect of it. I do. I didn't want any more kids. I kind of wanted the freedom to go create more. And that all gets incorporated in the book, Wingman, because I think a lot of times when you think, and I always said like they have these pickup artist books, and I've read them. They're cool. But my whole thing with Wingman was about building relationships with women. It's not about one-offs. It's about building these friendships, and it's not a scam or anything, but it's very similar to just say you make friends with numerous amounts of women, ones you may like, not like, whatever the case may be, and then they truthfully introduce you to other women, and it goes on and on and on. Most men don't know how to build relationships with women. They like a woman, they kind of pursue them, they may get rejected or not, then they end up maybe with them, and then say it works out or say it doesn't work out, then they just go to the next one, right? It's understandable. But a lot of times, you don't know what's the right one. And you don't have to have sex with somebody all the time. Like it's really, the book is the complete opposite. It's about not having sex with a woman, like in a one-night stand. Even though it happens, again, it's about learning about all different types of women, putting yourself in the right place at the right time, and also finding somebody who truly has the same kind of core values you do. Because a lot of dudes, including me, we may get wrapped up with certain types of women that we find very attractive when they're younger, and then before you know it, the only thing you have is really, say, the sex component, or they're very attractive, but as far as your core values and the lifestyle you lead may not match up. Now, I've been on both ends of that. Believe me when I tell you, I lived a very fast lifestyle where a lot of really good girls you had opportunities to maybe, have relationships with, but they, it's not going to work out. And on the other end, you may have been kind of on the straight and narrow, and you met a lot of fast women on the, that were very attractive, and they were doing a lot of things that you didn't find, very, I guess you could say, just not the way you wanted to live. And I think with the Wingman, I just wanted to take an honest approach, because not only it's not a pickup artist type book, but it's coming from the perspective of, I know what it is for a young man to be in an environment with a lot of women. And that goes for talking teens into my 20s. That goes for like gentlemen's clubs. That goes for bars, nightclubs. And my mother being very Christian and religious, I was around a ton of religious people as well. It was 2 opposite ends of the spectrum. And I thought I can give my opinions regarding that. And, because I think a lot of guys go through those phases where they want to break out and they want to, I didn't have to break out. I didn't have to go to college. A lot of my friends went to college, but the college for the party scene, the drinking, even high school. When your parents own a bar and nightclub, or my father at that point in time, and then not only that, I was going to a lot of concerts. I was going to the Playboy Club. I was going to comedy clubs in my early teens, like 12. They talk about Dave Chappelle, and I think it's Eddie Murphy. I think 16, maybe 15. I was literally going to comedy clubs at 12 years old, booking talent with my father. So you want to talk about growing up quick. And I always found it quite interesting, too, because I was only attracted to women because I was only around women. When I would go back to school, even in junior high and high school, I mean, of course, you date these girls, but I felt like they were kids because I was around women. Not saying I was with those women. But I will say, when I went to, one thing that also I think I bring up in the book, too, is, me living in Florida through the summers, in winter in Chicago. I kind of had 2 totally different worlds and living in them, how different they were. And then I'd even visit California. And, I went to Nick Bollettieri Tennis Academy, which were some of the most beautiful, really that was a very interesting time in my life because I was, they talk about, becoming really maybe a professional tennis player in the future. You go to this camp, and some of the most fit, strongest, smartest women I've ever been around. It also gave me a different perspective on that type of woman. And, a lot of us only know the type of woman that we're surrounded by. Maybe it could be your neighborhood growing up. It could be, your family members, friends, colleagues, or whoever, like they introduce you to those people, and they're usually very similar. But when you start getting around other people that are so different, so like these girls, say in Florida in summer school, I was in Orlando, you got girls that go to summer school that are just Orlando girls. They're kind of Wet n Wild, Disney kids, Universal Studio. Well, that wasn't around yet, but Chicago, it's kind of that environment. But then when I went to Bradenton, Florida, these girls were from all over the world. Some of them are pro. Most of them went pro, a lot of these girls. Agassi was there. Courier was there when I was there. And I just learned another lifestyle that was so different. And by learning all these different types of things, I wanted to incorporate that in the book regarding relationships, women, and how to listen. I think a lot of guys are jagoffs, and I think a lot of women, too, don't know how to behave. But you got to learn how to take the high road, and you got to understand the relationship that you're in, you create a lot of it. I'm not saying you're in control of whoever you're dating. I don't care if it's a man, woman, or whatever the case may be. You're never going to be able to control that person as much as you think you are, at least in our country. But you can control who you are. And I also get into many things, like I know a lot of guys with cheating. I always talk about almost everyone, not everyone, but everyone I think to a certain degree has cheated, been cheated on, or may have been with someone who was cheating, or may have been with somebody who you didn't know was cheating, or you didn't know was cheating, I should say. So, I get into how to handle, I think, a lot of different things with that from a real deal type thing. It's not phony. People are going to go through this, right? No one is perfect. And, so I get into many different things, too, in the book. I really want to get it. What's interesting is I do a lot of YouTube fitness stuff, but I don't get too much into fitness with Wingman. I get into more or less, if you want to lose weight, gain muscle, how to quit some bad habits. God, I wish I would have put the book in front of me. I didn't even do that. I'm just thinking about it. Identity, really, and becoming who you truly want to become in front of the woman or women that you're interested in. Too many people, men and women, pretend to be something they're not, especially in relationships. It's brutal. I've been there myself. I've acted differently. I've just was not myself in certain relationships. And I think probably as far as women goes, women that I've been with as well, I think they thought they had to be a certain way to be around me sometimes. And you realize after you break up and you're like, wow, or it doesn't work out. And I've always tried to keep my friendships for the most part. And, you got to learn too in life how to treat someone right even when it goes wrong. Even sometimes if they're lashing out, kind of take the high road, especially men. But and women too. I just think there's such a fine line. I am going to wrap it up with this, between love and hate. It's insane that you can be with somebody for, I don't care if you date them for a couple months. I don't care if you date them for years, decades, right? But then when it's not going right for either one of you or both, you all of a sudden become something like a monster. I don't understand it. And we get hurt because usually one side you both feel differently about the situation, regardless who's breaking up with who or why it's ending. And sometimes it hurts the other one maybe more than the other. Some may be madder than the other. I get it. But you got to understand life goes on. And as hard as it is, even through a divorce, and that's the thing I get into in that book a lot, is I think how I handled my divorce, because my parents have both been divorced a couple times. And it's not easy. But you can get through it. And, if you do have kids, too, I never understood disrespecting their mother. I mean, maybe I had somebody who was super cool, and I didn't have somebody who was vicious, so maybe that's something that I didn't go through. But still, don't let somebody destroy who you are in any relationship, and good or bad. Because I have a saying in that book. It doesn't, how did I word it actually? The minute you realize you don't need anyone to complete you is when you are. Something like that. Basically, you don't need anybody else to complete you. I don't give a shit what Jerry Maguire or whatever anyone says, because if something ends, you have to move on. And the reality is there's 3.5 billion women out there. There's 3.5 billion more men out there. So if you've ever been in relationships, a lot of times you may be in one and you're ending it and you're like, oh my God, this is it. This sucks. I'll never find someone else or whatever. But then down the road, for the most part, not always, you find someone else and you're like, oh my God, this is the one I should be with. And then that man, you may be with another person, be like, oh my God, thank God I'm in this relationship. But a lot of those other previous relationships may be leading you into the one you're in now. And it's hard to say that relationships are meant to last forever. Let's call it for what it is. You have to take an honest approach. I talk about that regarding my perspective on marriage in that book as well. It's a very interesting type of thing regarding how I think that contract should be laid out. And to say you're going to sign something for the rest of your life and be with someone, it's fine if you want to do it, but just be very aware of that, especially with prenups and things in that nature. So I'm going to wrap it up there. I only wanted this thing to be 10 minutes. It's 20 minutes. But if you want to check out my book, The Wingman, it's wingmanthebook.com. You could find it on richcelenza.com. And I've got numerous amounts of reviews on it. So it's all really good. I think I'm almost still averaging 5 stars on it. I haven't checked it in a long time. But you can get it as an ebook. And, I'm going to tell you something. If you can't afford to buy my book, because I think a lot of people can't, and it's not even that expensive. It's $10, $12, and it's not. Hit me up. I'll send it to you for free. I don't play that shit. I'm going to do a podcast. Things with me is more about helping others than it truly is making money. And that's not a pitch to say that. So if you do listen to this, just hit me up. Email me, rich@richcelenza.com. Say, Rich, I'm interested in your book, and I'll send it to you. And a lot of people may be like, you're nuts. What are you trying to do there? But I truly want to help people if they want me to help them. And if you don't learn anything from it, you don't learn anything from it. But please feel free to hit me up, and I'll send you the book. All right, take care, and I wish you nothing but the best.